Hello, and welcome back to the Argyle CFO Leadership Forum. My name is Brittany Sullivan with Argyle, and it's great to have everyone joining us today. A couple of notes before I turn things over to our panel moderator. First, a quick reminder to stop by our sponsors' virtual booths at any time during today's event and for the following week. Our partners are committed to providing you with valuable content and a great overall experience. At any time during today's event, you can visit their virtual booths from the main agenda page, which include complimentary materials, information, and meet and greet opportunities. For those seeking CPE credit today, you must answer at least 3 polling questions and remain on the session for its duration. Polls can be found under the Polls tab on the right-hand side of your console, next to the chat feature. Afterwards, if you're eligible to receive credit, you will receive an email with a link to your certificates. If you have any questions on credits, please email cpe@argyleforum.com. To ask questions of the session, simply type into the Q&A chat, and we will address your questions at the end of the session. Now, without further delay, I would love to introduce our moderator, Patricia Tatro, founder and fractional CFO at VantageView. We are excited to have Patricia and our panelists with us for a panel titled Cultivating the Best Finance Team for Long-Term Success. Welcome, Patricia, and over to you.
Thank you, Brittany. Yes, I'm Patricia Tatro, and I'm located in Minneapolis. I began my career working with major corporations like GE, Pactiv Corporation, American Standard, a couple others. And over the last several years, or my career rather, 25 plus years, I've had the privilege of working with companies of all sizes at all stages, from startup pre-revenue all the way to exit planning and M&A. But earlier this year, I actually took that experience and decided to launch my own firm, VantageView. We are a fractional CFO and accounting advisory support firm. So we help closely held companies with their strategic financial needs as well as their back office support. And I'm finding this topic is very relevant to me because I quickly learned how important these staffing decisions are, and it means a lot to me as my company. So I'm happy to share the insights I've had this year as well as throughout my career. Thank you very much. And let me turn it over to Julian, if you'd like to introduce yourself.
Thank you, Patricia. Hello, everyone. I'm Julian Siflico. I am the Division Financial Controller for the Kroger Company here in Michigan, U.S. I got to tell you that I'm very excited today, along with being here with you, along with Matt and Patricia, discussing, how to cultivate, the best team in finance, and then you can look at that for a long term. A couple of things about me. All my career has been in retail. I started, Kroger, working as a seafood clerk here. And then I moved up in my career, managed retail stores for several years, handled several roles within the division office, either merchandise or operation. And then lately, in the last 15 years, I've been stuck in finance. I love finance, by the way. And then in different roles, started as an analyst and then assistant controller, CFO in different parts of the country too. So again, glad to be here with you. Great topic. We'll learn a lot from each other. Turning over to you, Matt.
Thank you. I'm Matt McFadden. I've spent, almost 20-year career now strictly in finance and FP&A and corporate finance. I've worked in food manufacturing, private label credit, more heavy data center manufacturing, and now I'm currently in corporate finance for a company called Congruex, which is a national teleco construction company. I have had the privilege of working in kind of all facets of a finance organization, from the expense side to revenue side to special projects to you name it, all the ad hoc work, and have also been privileged to have built and helped develop teams in multiple different companies of different sizes. So this is a very exciting topic because one of the things that I think we'll all be bringing to the table is that, the situations may change, but a lot of the basic principles remain the same in terms of team development and building strong cultures. And so I think it's going to be a very exciting conversation. I'm happy to be a part of.
Thanks, Matt. So I'm going to get us started today kind of with our first question, and is from your experience, and I'm going to give this to Julian first. From your experience, what talent acquisition strategies have proven most effective for attracting top talent? And please share any real world examples you might have.
Absolutely, Patricia. And I think this is a right question to start our discussion today. Uh, the way how I see it is every organization has a different strategies when it comes to how to approach getting talent and approaching talent and keeping them in long term and retaining them. And again, depends on the scope of the business, what they are offering and all that. Uh, I'm going to offer my perspective as it stands in retail, right? And it's like you look, their strategy is connected to the long term. What I mean by that, long term, if you look at the long term, is an ongoing strategy, right? And it's based on the business needs, strategic planning, which requires more time and planning. And it is important to understand that the foundation, I would say, of this long term is you got to learn the business in every detail. And this is how you be successful. And on the contrary, short term is the other one, which you feel, any position based on the needs, and I can hire you right now because I need you. So let's talk a little bit about the long term, which is proven to be very successful, especially in retail. And I'm going to share with you my journey because you're looking at at that person here right now. When I started as a seafood clerk with Kroger. Yes, that's the truth. And I came here from Albania. I didn't know anything about the retail. I didn't know anything about the business, right? So starting as a seafood clerk and got to know the team, to know the business, to accept training, to accept challenges, and as I evolved in my career, I accepted, like I said, different roles. I learned how to run the business from the store, and then you move to the office and learned how to connect the office with the team in the store. And then, of course, lately, like I said, a few years in the finance. I have to tell you that it's been very beneficial because, like I said, I learned now recognizing. Let's say you build a report, you either a sales report or whatever it might be that you're trying to, or you send it to the audience. By understanding who the audience is, it's easy, and you'd be more beneficial to send the report to. And I can tell you another thing that based on what I know and what I've seen in retail, in finance teams, most successful CFOs and controllers and all that has been the ones that know the business from the bottom.
Yeah, I'll jump in here.
Yeah.
Julian made a great comment just now about knowing the details of the business. And I was actually just giving a presentation yesterday about acumen. And, I talk a lot with the people on my team about, we take all this data and we have to break it apart, put it back together differently, and then break it apart again and put it back together to develop those deep understandings. And when it comes to the talent acquisition strategies, what I've learned in my career that becomes critically important in partnering with the talent acquisition team is to be clear in what you want, and what you want, not just for the position, but for the position as it relates to your culture. And so for me, there's a heavy emphasis on the attitude of problem solving. I can take somebody who doesn't have a strong finance background, but if they're inquisitive and hungry to learn, and they like to solve problems and work to understand, not just the what, but the why, then we can start to craft the proper job descriptions. Because that to me is kind of where it starts. I have a friend named Derek, we call him the captain, and he's worked in talent acquisition for a long time. And if we run something by him and he doesn't like it, he'll just very sarcastically go, "That's fine. It's fine. It's fine," as a way to prod you into getting a little more specific. But it comes down to, if you are looking for problem solving mindsets, that has to be in your job description near the top. If you're looking for people who don't just do jobs, but really work to own their work and really work to understand things, be specific. That way, when you're interviewing people that help, they've had at least that sentence or two to read, that when you start asking questions that are probing the problem solving mindset, you can get better answers. That helps, in my experience, to bring better, and better here means the culture that we want, people into the room. And once they're in the room, then you have a room full of problem solvers. And then you just have, as Patricia and Julian, never ending problems or challenges you can go look at and dig through. And so, I think one, again, being very clear in your job descriptions that helps your talent acquisition team bring you the right candidate slate. And then two, heavy focus on the mindset that you want to bring into your organization as you work to build this team going forward.
Sorry, I had trouble with my mute. Matt, I love that what you were saying about, problem solving and curious. And Julian, as I listened to your story, I thought, wow, the path you went in probably gives you that perspective to when you're meeting people to see who they will become, who they might be. So not just filling today's need, but able to see how they might grow within the organization. And Matt, I did have a job posting recently a couple months ago, and I did put words like curious and problem solving. And I did look for that because you're right, you can teach a lot of things, but you can't make somebody have that. If that's not part of their DNA, it's a lot harder to get there. So I love people with that type of attitude. And I know that a lot of the knowledge, it'll just come. I mean, that's usually the intelligent people are asking these questions. They're curious. They want to know things. So I'm very much pro in that sort of thing. And so it really just does start with, in my mind, having that detailed job description. And when you're meeting with candidates, taking the time to, you might have a set of questions. You try to keep it somewhat even when you meet different candidates so you can evaluate. So you can't venture off too far, but maybe have those questions be a little bit, that you can adapt them a little bit to the person. That way you're getting a chance to understand that candidate, understand their unique strengths, and maybe help them feel value from the beginning, that they are going to be listened to, and you're not just going through that, that list of questions. Okay, that brings me to our next question, and I'm going to give this one to Matt. Matt, how can CFOs and finance leaders build efficient recruitment processes that identify skilled candidates and align with long-term goals?
Well, that first starts with correctly identifying your long-term goals, I think. And, it's easy to just say make more money or increase margins or be more profitable. But in terms of recruiting talent, if your long-term goal is building strong teams, that can help lead through the process. And again, getting back to what you're looking for as your, however many individuals you're going to have go doing the interviewing throughout the process, the more that they can bring different perspectives from their own background. But to your point, Patricia, not just ask basic questions or maybe the standard behavioral, tell me a time when questions, but go one step further and say, and try to probe the thought process through the examples that the applicant is providing, and kind of know what went well, what didn't go well, why didn't it go well, how did you feel throughout this process, what were the stressors, what relieved the stress, what kind of, I've done this, I don't do this with very green talent, but I will do this with more seasoned, maybe somebody with 5 or 6 years of experience. I have very often just said, if you had a blank slate to describe culture of an FP&A team, go. And I'll just sit back and let them explain what they want, because then I can see if it aligns with what we have. But as far as getting efficiently through it, the more that, again, if you're focused on the culture and bringing in the right set of people and you tailor the questions or you continue to probe through the questions, then when you're gathering feedback from your team, you're not just getting feedback on, they're strong, they can do the job, but they're a good fit. They have the right attitude. This is somebody who we can develop in slot A, and as Julian has experienced, move them around into different areas of the business. And there's nothing worse than making a bad hire. It takes so long to kind of correct that. So getting it right the first time by putting pressure on exactly what we're trying to get at through the interview process can make the whole inflow process, the talent acquisition process, more efficient and get more right people in the door the first time.
Here, I'm going to jump a little bit here, Patricia, and I like what Matt said about the stages. I mean, you start the interviewing process, and then you're trying to understand what that individual, the candidate, is looking for, right? What are the career goals? So, okay, you're going to start today. Where do you see yourself a year from now? 2 years from now? What are the aspirations? Maybe for some people it's going to be hard to say because I don't know. But the key here is, and you heard probably the audience and everybody else, you heard the word attitude. Probably by now I'm counting here, right? I'm a good counter, by the way. I count like 15 times. It's a good reason for that, because the key here during the the interview process, and then it's another stage that you look at the candidate to try to understand what direction they're going, right? You look for those individuals that have the right attitude. Okay, we can crunch numbers, right? But the next level is, how good are you at explaining the numbers to to Julian, to Matt, to Patricia, to everybody, different roles within our organization. So that's I think that's the key. So what we're looking for, the next stage is, you got to be a storyteller. And the key here, as a leader, as we are, we got to stay close to that individual, to that group of individuals, making sure that they are satisfied with the career goals that they are looking for, and B, we help them along the line, to make sure that yes, that definitely they are becoming this leader that I'm going to look, on the next 10 years, 15 years. So, and I have to say it because I can speak from my history. I've seen a lot of people that grew in their careers. And been very happy, to be either a mentor or a coach for them. And myself, I've been so fortunate having those kind of leaders in my journey that really, when I raised my hand, they gave me a chance. So this is how that goes, I think.
Thank you, Julian. Yeah, I mean, you and Matt both shared some. I can say it better myself. I mean, I can just echo some of what you've been saying. I do love your comment, Matt, about asking them what they think a strong FP&A culture would be. I mean, that's a great question. You never know what you're going to hear. You might hear some funny stuff, but at the same time, that we want to know people. We really want to know what's going on with them. It gives us a chance to understand if they're a fit, but it also gives us a chance to show them that we care about who they are and where it's possible to make those changes, in align, grow together in alignment. I do think long-term, having people on your team that grow with you, it's about them feeling valued. And most people want a voice to some level. So when you hear what they want, you can find places to, show that you're on the same page and that you heard them, or even that you're willing to alter because of something they said. I think it makes a lot of sense. But in the candidate interview process, for sure, echoing again, just the short-term needs. Okay, are they going to be able to meet these short-term needs? But bigger and more important than that is, like you said, Julian, attitude and all of these, the storytelling, getting to know people. It matters when you think about the long-term role they're going to have, because if you just try to solve that short-term problem, they're going to feel it too, and it might not be a good fit. So, yep, that's where I stand. With that, I'm going to go on to the next question. And Julian, I'm going to put this one on you. What innovative approaches can be taken to foster a culture of inclusion within finance? And how can these be implemented to ensure they're impactful?
This is, I think this is like one of the key components. If you look to, when you acquire talents, and in every organization, I would say, and I think the two most important key aspects of these are core values and integrity. And the reason I'm saying that is because, if you look at the core values and integrity, and I'm going to add another one, actually, diversity, which, it's in tune with both too. And if you look at that by definition, they are equally important. And because as we seek to embrace, I would say, the differences in our backgrounds, the cultures, ethnicity, we have to encourage that, active involvement from everyone. Now, the way how I see this, innovative approach, I see that as a good behavior. And here are some key points that I want to talk about. First of all, include and accept others, everybody. We have to, as leaders, do the process. We have to eliminate that fear factor. What I mean by that is, in my career, I've been one of them that say, can I say something now? Am I going to be punished? And going back to the years, that was my mindset then. Now I think that wow, I should have thought that way at that time. I should have been brave and asked the question. So we have to be, have that. We have to set the stage in a way that everybody has an opinion, and every opinion has a value. We got to listen to that very carefully. We never. I don't encourage. Actually, I'm going to go the other way. I encourage the team to listen, to understand each other, instead of kind of reacting because my point of view, matters. No, everybody matters. The other piece is. Like I said, as far as listening and learning, and I touched on that, but we have to learn to listen and understand from the audience, right? And especially, like when I have it here, like in my finance team, when we are in the boardroom, when we are in the meetings, just throw a question, try to get perspective from everyone, and identify those key points. That what do I have to do next to get to the next level? How can I help you? How can you help me? Because everybody learn from each other.
The great points. In terms of building an inclusive culture, I think you hit the nail on the head, Julian, when you talk about integrity and kind of living the values. And so every department and every organization will say they have an open door policy. Yeah, I might have an open door, and then they'll promptly walk in their office and shut the door. But being high touch. So if I have team members, I try to make sure I'm having dedicated time with them at least once a week or once every other week. And then every now and then those conversations are not work related. It's just, how is everything going? How are you doing? You want to make sure people can come to you. And to your point, you said another great one, Julian, where actively listening and not dismissing, or not just kind of partially listening to what your team members are telling you, goes a long way to helping them feel as if they can come to you. Another way to build an inclusive culture, I think, within a team is this concept of pushing decision rights down as far in the organization as you can, and letting these team members own their work, truly own it. And then when they produce something, let them deliver it. So bring them into the room with you and let them be the one to deliver it, so that they get that more fully informs their experience, not to just be handed a task and do the task and hand it back, but to be handed a task that they're going to be responsible for working and understanding and knowing in such detail that they'll be the ones presenting up. And then you can take steps intermediately to help them. You run practice or dry run meetings with them, where you can give them the positive feedback and critiques to help them tailor a message to the director, vice president, whoever you want to bring them in to the room with. But it is really about making sure that people are heard, making sure that they feel comfortable coming to you, and that you will listen. You may not always agree with them, and you can provide feedback, but making sure that their voice matters just as much, and that when they do start to take on more responsibility, they are rewarded by being able to kind of get the credit that they deserve, and not having this sort of black box where they send their work back up into the black box and then somebody else gets to deliver that message. In my experience, that's been very valuable, when you can bring especially young talent and developing talent into the rooms so they get to not only participate, but just sit back and listen to the company. And it's also a great test of your culture because, as we just discussed in the first couple of questions, we're hiring smart, talented people. They'll see through people in leadership positions who aren't living the values of the company. If you say that you are team first and your actions say you are me first, it's very apparent. And so again, are we talking about people or are we talking about problems in a room? Because if I'm a problem solver and everything comes back down to people, then I start to question, are we really solving problems? What are we really doing and living the culture that we have said we are? And that becomes, exclusive in a way. So it really is about, bring them into the fold, kind of that open kimono approach. And then it forces you to live your values as the leaders. Otherwise, your talented people will see through you and, they will choose to exit your company very quickly.
Matt, I like your what you just said right now, which reminded me of another key points as you talk about the culture of inclusion, the trust factor. The trust factor can be built by allowing the individuals that to make a mistake too. I mean, you got to encourage that. Not exactly, you can make a mistake, it's okay, but you'll learn from that. And with that comes how well are you? How comfortable are you saying or sharing that mistake that you made? And here I'm going to do to correct it next. And then by having this kind of conversation, you build the trust. And the minute you build the trust, you have a big winner right there.
Absolutely, that's a great point. And to just tag on to that, when you can take those mistakes and just use them as learning opportunities and again put the pressure on, like, all right, this didn't work out, so now we got to go figure out what didn't work, why didn't it work, not just the standard rote, well, how are you going to ensure this never happens again? Because the answer is I'm not. We're human, and so there's always a risk of it not happening again. But again, if we can break it down and into the what happened, why did it happen? Can we do something to mitigate this? How far can we go on our end to mitigate this from happening in the future? It makes it less of a mistake and more of a learning opportunity. And two, again, it goes back to their development as problem solvers and kind of building more my own personal self, my idiot proofing my files to try to catch my own mistakes. Great point, Julian.
And by the way, real quick, I'm one of them that I made a lot of mistakes, to be honest with you, along my journey, but I'll learn from them.
I think that's great. I think we all have. And if we can't admit that, then we're creating an environment where no one feels safe to try. Because if you bring in these curious problem solvers, they're going to get it wrong sometimes. And that needs to be celebrated, not, it's never going to happen again. I love how you said that, Matt. I'm glad that wasn't your advice on how to handle situations, more of a not to. I mean, because this trust thing is huge. And also, Julie, when you said listen to understand a few times, you quoted, I think at least twice you said that. And I thought, okay, let me pause and try to understand that. I totally agree with that active listening, as you said, Matt. And if we say that really slowly, we're always in a hurry and we're trying, if we stop trying to figure out how we're going to respond and we sit there and listen to what they're trying to say, we might change our minds. We might see things a different way. I've had things like that happen recently where somebody was helping me build financial models and I knew exactly what it needed to look like. And I thought I communicated that, and then I saw the end result and I paused. It was better than what I had originally planned. And because I took the time to understand where they were going with it, I was able to celebrate that and say, okay, wow, together we're making good things happen. And it doesn't matter if you have a little experience or a lot. Those fresh set of eyes often, brilliant. So, but as far as creating that inclusion, I think in my mind, it is really and truly paying attention, believing that every person that you meet can teach you something. And I do believe that. Sometimes it's harder than other times to see it, but it really is true. And if you take the time to get to know people, you'll see value. And when people notice that you're seeing that and you're recognizing that and you're pausing to show that, they're going to feel included. And that's going to build confidence. It's going to show the other people in the company that that's the environment we want. So, yep. But I love everything you guys said about that. I don't think I have anything else to add. I should just keep this great conversation moving. So the next one, I wanted to start with Matt. And this one is, how can finance teams measure and assess the effectiveness of their company culture? And how can feedback be used for continuous improvement?
It's a great question. First and foremost, are people sticking around when things get tough? Right? If you have a weak culture, when every company that goes through some sort of struggle, when that struggle arises and your culture is not strong, that's when people leave. So it's easy to stick around a job when everything's going well, right? When the money's flowing in and everything's kind of working out and everybody's beating their budgets. It's very easy. The culture really matters when you run into the challenges and there are stresses and there's firestorms that have to be put out and all of these problematic work areas arise. If that's when you see if your culture is working. So if you've been living your values and living your culture all along, your team will band together during those moments rather than fracture apart. The feedback, again, I'm a big believer in true open door, constant communication, high touch. I understand the importance of anonymous surveys, but sometimes especially in large corporations, it's too vague, meaning that, again, these anonymous surveys kind of go into that black box and the executives work with the HR team. And then it comes back in terms of feedback and maybe some decisions are made and maybe they're not. But to me, a much more effective culture is again, more localized. It's hard to kind of have a broad culture. You have a company culture, but the culture really exists within the team. And if you're in constant communication and accepting of the feedback, actually listening and giving the voice to the team members that they deserve, you can fix all of the issues that arise in real time because people feel empowered to bring to you the things that are not working, or if something strayed from the culture, right? Before there's a problem, so that when the work-related problems come up, the culture is tight and everybody just focuses on the problem. That's sort of the to me the real test. I kind of remember back being in an astronomy class and the professor said, I'm going to give you a final, but the real test is 20 years from now. If you go look up at a night sky and you don't know what you're looking at, I didn't do my job. So it's almost as if the real test comes down the road. Are the people staying with you? Are they holding hands and we're going to go through this together? That's the sign of the strong culture.
Patricia, I strongly agree with Matt who said about that open policy. And I know, like you said, we have, surveys, we can look at turnover ratio, all those metrics and all. But what really matters, people to people, open door policy, like Matt said. And here I can add, especially, I have seen in my team here, I encourage those people that raise the hand, you know what, I'm going to do this special assignment. I'm going to sign up for that, which shows the willingness for, to take that next step. Another thing here that I think is like a sleeper, right? I'm going to throw in for discussion too. But what I see in my career is all the CFOs out there and controllers and, leaders in finance. Be careful, watch for your high performance that quite of a sudden go silent. Something is not right with that picture, meaning that that person, that individual, something he or she, whoever it is, doesn't agree with the direction that something the project is going, whatever might be the case. So take time to understand, take time to listen. Okay, have a conversation. maybe I'm taking that into the wrong direction as a leader. So I need to understand them before it goes too far in the road and then becomes a big problem.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, I love that. Be careful when your high performers go quiet. What does that mean? Might want to find out. Maybe it's nothing, but it could be. I mean, we've all seen that. Somebody who was really motivated, you saw this energy as they came in, and then they start to, grow quieter. And I think they start to sometimes feel like a cog in the system. So you have to watch out for that because, the bigger the company, the more the processes and more the metrics and utilization, and everyone's looking at it and how are we, and you can take the humanity out of those numbers very quickly if you don't. If you're not careful. So pay attention and ask questions. It's always more than the numbers. Even though as FP&A type people, we love to look at the numbers, we love to understand why they're changing. There's certain things that might look a little different. I don't know, unless you can measure number of words by your high performers. That's a joke. That's not a real measurement. Nobody take it like that, please. But yeah. So a couple things that I was thinking when you guys were talking. Challenges. That's when we find out what the culture really is, Matt. I like that. And it reminds me that, of course, in our roles, we're often trying to plan for challenges as much as we can. And we're trying to, make it a little less stressful. It really does highlight the importance of having good planning, having that strategic plan, understanding, the different scenarios when you're building your forecast and whatnot. But things come up that might not be in the numbers. And when those challenges take place, how we treat people matters. And that's how we share with the team who we really are. And as leaders, we have to show that in the tough times, we're going to come together and they're still just as important. And, I had a client that has recently, reduced their revenue unexpectedly, had a few rough quarters. We can't quite put our hands around it. And if we're not careful, the sales group feels all the weight of this because, that top line. Or then you have operations feeling like they have to cut money that's not there to cut. Or goodness, they might start trying to cut marketing spend and all kinds of decisions made in a knee-jerk way. But that type of environment impacts culture so much. So those were all great points. But I think if we're communicating our goals, sharing our visions, where it's appropriate to share. I know that always can vary, but understanding where we're trying to go, that creates an opportunity for people to want to step up, to ask where they can be involved. Those problem solvers and critical thinkers, we invite them into that conversation and say, what do you think? But all of those things, good and bad times, create a culture that's, very important. I'm looking right now at the time and we have a couple more questions, but I think maybe we should take a second and look at the Q&A just to make sure we give time for that. So I'm going to go look at that real quick, and then if we have more time, we'll hop back to the other questions. So looks like we have a couple. Prashant asks, what are the questions that you ask to assess the cultural fit and long-term player given the interview time is short? So Matt or Julie, do either one of you have a go-to there?
I can start first, and I'm going to go to the last one. Long-term player. What I mean by that, there are a lot of questions that you can ask during the interview. One of them is, give me an experience when you started the project and you were in charge of the project, and have other team members, come and join you. And then, what did you learn from that? So, with that question, what I'm trying to assess here is how well you work as a team, how you consider other ideas, how you're able to probably, if an idea doesn't work and you feel that it doesn't work, right? How you communicate to that person because the key here, first, you need a person to be valued, right? So it's like a fine line there, and you're valued, but in this time doesn't work. So any other ideas? So these kind of strategies, this is one of the questions. Let's say, as far as the culture fit, has to do a lot with the culture the organization has. Like in retail, we are inclusive. We have a lot of great stuff going. So there are questions, as far as towards that, how well you work with people with different ideas, as an example.
Yeah, I like that as well. One question I like to ask is, tell me about a time when something went wrong and walk me through it. And what I'm really listening for is, I'm not really interested in what went wrong. I'm not really interested in why it went wrong. I'm really interested in the process of the identification of the problem and how the person's tone almost is as they're working through how they worked through the problem. It goes back to what you were mentioning, Julian. Can you work with cross-functional teams? When you hit something of a problem, did you work through the problem, or did you start to look for ways out of the problem? Did you go through it or around it? Another one, I love how do you try to find long-term people versus short-term people? Asking questions, in my experience, about mindset and leadership, and like, why do you want to work here? Right? It's so simple. Hey, we're a company. You can go look up information about us. Why do you want to come work for this company? Or did you just see a job title you like that you kind of wanted to go after? But again, working from the long-term versus short-term, if you find people with the right attitude, the problem-solving attitude, those, in my experience, are people more inclined to be long-term players than short-term players, because they'll enjoy the work. You have to enjoy what you do at some level, or you're not going to last very long. And then as far as getting people for the right culture, again, I want people who don't run from problems. So I'm going to probe questions to figure out what they do when they run into problems. And again, it's tell me when things go well. How did you celebrate? How did you celebrate your team? When things don't go well, how did you work through it as a team and you individually? Those, to me, are areas and ways to kind of directly get to the heart of the intent of the person as they're working through the different challenges that rise in business.
Thank you, Matt. And I'm going to add to that something a little bit that hasn't been said. And I try to find ways to figure out, we back up. We know we want strategic people. We want curious problem solvers. I also really, really want empathetic people. So I want strong minds that show that they care about others. So I can't always work this into a question, but I look for a chance when we're talking about, dealing with challenges, or when you're a process change, how they communicated with others. Maybe somebody who saw it differently in what their approach was, or my line of work, a difficult customer, client. But I really need people that I love it if you have strong goals in your future. That's great. You want that, and you want to drive that and have that. But if you don't care, if you're not gonna listen to understand, if you're not gonna do those things, then I think you'll create a culture that is exactly opposite of what you want for your company. Okay, let me go to the next question. So talking about innovation, as analytical leaders, do you utilize department level employee engagement tools and approaches? How do you prioritize which employee engagement approaches, tactics to support? I can say that again if I need to.
I'll take that one first. Systemic tools are great, but they're not the best in my opinion. They systemic tools, and especially the anonymity, allows for feedback, to be more candid for especially individuals who may not be as comfortable yet. Maybe they're comfortable coming to you, but not to a broader team with an issue. However, I much more prefer just high touch, constant communication, right? Like, let's not wait 6 months or 12 months for the next annual survey to come out before we figure out if we're having problems or not. we should be talking constantly. And we should never be surprised. If you're ever, it's that old thing, if you're ever surprised at a year-end review or in a year-end survey, you didn't do your job in the last 12 months, because you should be constantly communicating with people. Check in on them. You know, Patricia, you said something great about empathy. I can still remember one of the most heartbreaking things I ever heard was somebody had to work like a Labor Day weekend. And they came back and the statement was like, hey, I didn't mind doing the work, but nobody even said thanks. Like that, you know, so communicate with your people. Let them know that they're appreciated. Let them know that their voice matters. That to me is the real employee engagement. It's every day. It's not every 6 months. It's not every 12 months. It's every single day, making people feel included and respected.
Exactly here what Matt just said. You know, end review or half year review or 3 months review, quarter review. These are one of those things that you put in a calendar and say, okay, like sometimes it becomes a check in the box. We don't want that. Daily conversation. You can start, you know, with, is it a good weather outside or it's not? How was your weekend? And then you can talk about the projects. You can talk about, you know, what do you think about next week? How your schedule looks next week. Okay. There are people, and I have to relay this from my experience, that might have a family problem today, tomorrow. I'm all for it. I say, you take a day off. And the next day you come here re-energized and all that, and become a real value, because now you build that trust. So everyday conversation, I think has a tremendous impact on our talents.
Yeah, no, I like that. I mean, for sure, you know, there are tools for engagement, but like you said, Matt, it's not just this tool; it's how you interact. And Julian, I like the idea that you're touching the touch point. You're getting to know people. That is the engagement there. There's plenty of tools out there. Some people are on Slack, some people are Teams. There's different ways people communicate. Sometimes they use that even if they're all in the same office and never talk to each other face to face. That's not the idea. Those tools are great for the remote environments, as you know, and in person to a certain extent. But if you're not taking the time to get to know people, then you're missing out, and you're probably going to lose good people. So, all right. The next question we have is CFO, finance leaders, finance professionals are decision makers. What is the biggest, toughest challenge you have faced in your roles and journey with the topic overall?
I can take that first. All the examples that I have, or from my experiences, it comes to one word: attitude. Finding those individuals with the right attitude towards development. You can learn skills at any time. I learned skills, okay, in my career, but I had the right attitude towards them. I raised my hand and say, you know what, I want to take the project. Being open-minded, and then being willing to ask the question, what am I doing wrong? What do I need to do, to get to the next step? So these are the tough questions when it comes to attitude, that towards what do you want to be? So it's all for you. You can be anything you want, as long as you have the right attitude. If you don't, and then any skills, I don't think matters.
Yeah, spot on. Attitude and culture. It's the hardest thing, and trying to, and being jealously guarding that culture, meaning you can't accept anybody who starts to stray from the culture. You can't allow the culture to get poisoned. Is tough. As far as development, it's really challenging. The hardest jump I ever made, and the hardest jump I've ever seen people make, is from that senior analyst into a manager role. It's, manager to director was easy, but going from just doing the work to having to think about the what's and the whys and the hows, and how somebody else's development timeline doesn't match yours. Maybe you're a quick learner and they're not as quick as you. So that helping individuals get from that senior analyst mindset to the manager mindset is a very challenging growth, growth to go through. And it's a very challenging leadership development process to walk somebody through and help somebody through. It's also very challenging to not just give the answers too. So one of the hardest things to do is we get so focused on getting to the right answer that we rob people's development of struggling through the problems. So finding that fine line of they're working up their curve and you're here supporting them, but not intruding on their development too is another hard thing. The big problem, if you do the little things well, the big things will take care of themselves. And so if you build, again, the problem solvers, the right mindset, the learning mentality, you'll get the results you want in the end.
Thanks, Matt. So I have a couple of questions and we're just about out of time, but we're just going to take a moment, give any final thoughts. In my mind, the things that I wanted to end with are creating a safe environment for the team to grow in confidence. I want them to be able to try new things without fear of failure. I want to set that example where I admit my faults and we collaborate and we all learn from my faults, their faults, and it's celebrated that we're trying. I want to encourage involvement in initiatives and I want to recognize contributions, kind of like what you said, Matt. I didn't mind doing the work, but no one said thank you. But I want to embrace failure as a learning opportunity. And forgive me, I forget the name of the person, the founder of Spanx, whose father said, I love this. I wish I could remember her name. All of a sudden I've lost it. At the end of every day, he said to her, what did you fail at today? And I have quoted that several times to people, in different ways, because that's a celebration. People get scared of that, but that father said to his daughter that question, and he wanted her to try new things, and he knew that meant she would fail. So I'm going to leave you with that. Julian?
I'm going to say one thing real quick. When I started, listen to understand, not react.
Yeah, I think Sarah Blakely. I think Sarah Blakely is her name, the founder of Spanx. I love that quote too of telling us and like be joyous about like, what did you fail at today? Such a radical mindset shift. Again, I think I would just hammer home the point. You have to live your value. You have to live your culture. The corny phrase is be the change you want to see, all the stuff. It matters. People will see through you if you are not authentic. And so, be authentic, be open, bring people in, give people a reason to follow you. Because nobody will follow you just because you tell them to. So live the reasons why they should follow you to create that strong culture.
I love that. Thanks so much, Matt. Thanks, Julian. And I'll give it back to you, Brittany.
Excellent. Well, thank you guys so much for such a fantastic panel discussion. I also want to thank everyone who joined us today. This session, along with all of today's content, will be made available on demand following the event. Our next session will begin momentarily at 12:30 Eastern, which will be a thought leadership titled Can't Escape AI. Please click on the join button that will appear on your screen to be redirected, and we look forward to seeing you there. Thank you guys so much again for such a great session.
Thank you.